Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Actix here, bringing you guys my render tutorial. And so let's get started. So I'm going to bring in my logo. We're just going to have a blank Cinema 4D file. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my AI, just like that. Center it. This is basically what I do every time I start it up. So then you're going to click on the AI, hold Alt on your keyboard, and then go to Extrude NURBS, and that essentially makes it a child automatically. Go to the Object tab, and then just turn up the depth a bit. Alright, so for the first render, I'm going to be showing you guys the underwater style. And so these are the two materials that I use. And before you start bitching and start like jumping out of your seat and screaming at me because you don't have these materials, check the description because I'm going to be giving you guys both of these materials so you guys can use them. So first things first, you're just going to drag the rock texture onto the logo, and if you see that the texture isn't appearing on the front, that's completely normal. You just click on your material up here by your Extrude NURBS, and then where it says projection, change it from UVW mapping to cubic. And there you go, so you should see the texture on the front of your logo. Also, make sure that seamless is selected. Essentially, seamless makes sure that you don't have any edges like that. So it's a constant texture. So now that you have the main rock texture on your logo, you're just going to duplicate it. On the duplicate, you go to the Caps tab, and on the start and end, you both make them fillet, and then you change the radii to 1 centimeter on both. And then you're going to drag and drop your lava on the outside of the logo, and that should make, for some reason it's not loading, that's fine. It'll make an outline of your logo with the lava material, and same as before, you change it from UVW mapping, cubic, and seamless. So these are the basic materials that we're going to be using, and this is actually a very simple render. It's the easiest of the ones I'm going to be showing you. But yeah, so then you're going to duplicate your main logo, or the Extrude NURBS one with the rock texture. So Control-C, Control-V. And then this is where we use our first plugin, which is Thrausi. So Thrausi is similar to Nitroblast, but it's I preferred it for this render. I chose to use Thrausi. You're going to select the Voronoi option here as opposed to random, and then turn up the pieces to. This typically depends on whether it's a logo or a text. For text, I would recommend, if it's like a chunky, like a bulky font, something between 25 and 40 pieces per letter. And for a logo like this, I'm just going to do 50 pieces. Since that's going to, actually, yeah, 50 pieces. And then just hit break now. So what this is going to do is, well, very obviously, it's going to break up your duplicate into 50 different pieces. And once this finishes up, let's see, that's the status bar, halfway there. Actually, I'll just come back when it's done. So it's all finished up, and you should have a fracture here with all 50 pieces of your logo, which you can select, and if you want, you can manually push and pull, but I wouldn't recommend doing that just yet. So you're going to have your Thrausi here. You're just going to, on this X, you're just going to click on it, make it a check, then go to MoGraph, Effector, Random, and it should automatically break up your pieces. If it does not do that, I'll show you the second way, which is essentially you click on your Extrude NURBS or the fracture, you go to the Effectors tab, there should be an empty rectangle right here, and then you're going to go to MoGraph, Effector, Random. If it still does not break, just drag and drop the random into the Effectors box down here. So now we're just going to tweak the settings a bit for our random effector. So you go in the Parameters tab on the Randomize, and you're going to try to get your pieces to be as aligned to your logo as possible. So just move them into place a bit. like that, and then just let's see, a bit more separate. You don't want them to be extremely in the way because this is not the main point. So I turn up the Z value. Essentially what the Z does, if I move back a bit, it chooses the depth. So if I turn this down, it pushes everything together. So we want to kind of put a bit of depth, and then you're going to select your extrude NURBS, and then you're just going to push it back. And what this does is it gives you some of the Thrausi in the front, and it's going to give you a good amount in the back. So you want some of them to be pushing out from behind, similar to this, but nothing too overwhelming, because you obviously want your logo to remain visible. And you're just going to duplicate your fracture, excuse me, and then you go here, click and hold, go to atom array, change the sphere radius to 5 centimeters to 0.5, so just add a point, and then drag and drop that the fracture into the atom array. And essentially what this does is it outlines your Thrausi with little lines, and I think it was a nice detail to the render. It's obviously not mandatory, but that's how I chose to do it. And then I think I'm not using a Lightroom or anything right now, but this stands out too much, this default color. So you're just going to create a new material down here. You just double click or go to create new material, double click on the material, right click on the sphere, object, soft shadow. This is my basic material. Like these are the steps I go through. You're going to go on the color tab, which is the first one, click on color, and then make it a darkish gray, similar to this one, 94, 94, 94 if you want the exact. And then you're just going to drag and drop that onto the atom array, and that'll just make it it'll make it stand out less, and it's just like a small detail. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Also, when for these kinds of renders, I like to put them in, since the style has a light source coming from up top, I like to select all the parts of my render and then rotate them up like that, up and to a side. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. Also, I'm going to be showing you guys, let's see, some render settings. So if you want really good quality, go to output. I'd recommend, let's do 1280 by 720, which is the typical resolution. Don't touch anything else here. Go to save, change the format from TIFF to PNG, and then alpha channel, select that, make sure you do that. Then go to effect, ambient occlusion, and if you're using a Lightroom, do effect global illumination. If you're not using Lightroom, do not use global illumination, but essentially what this does is it'll give you a much higher quality render. So let's see if I can do a very small piece here, just so I don't waste much time, since I have a rather slow computer now. It should start rendering this out. Well, basically, if you have those options selected, it will greatly increase the quality of your render, which is always a good thing. It'll definitely take some time, because global illumination is very, like, you see, for example, that's the mistake I made. I have no lights in here, so you couldn't see it, which was kind of a waste of time. But make sure you have a Lightroom or something if you're using global illumination. If not, I'll just give you an example. If you have no Lightroom, it's not necessary, but it greatly improves the quality. See, already you can see some of the shadows are being brought out. So yeah, so this is pretty much it for the first render. Let's just jump right into the second one. Alright guys, here we go. So now we're going to be using the same material, the rock material. This is one of my personal favorites. I'm also going to be giving you guys the texture, which is necessary for this. This is a slightly darker variation. I just decided to make a dark overlay and turning down the mix strength, just to give it a darker look, and I'll show you guys why. So this is a rather complicated render, so be sure to try and keep up, because there's a lot of steps to this. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge my logo once again. Center it. Alright. Once again, hold Alt, extrude NURBS. Let's give it some depth as well. And you might see that I already have some things here. That's just for the settings for you guys, just so I don't mess anything up. And yeah, so essentially what I'm going to be showing you guys is a very cool effect which makes it look like the logo is split in half, and it has tentacles breaking through the middle of the logo. It is it's a very dynamic render, which I like a lot, and yeah, so hopefully you guys will like it. So first things first, you're just going to get your extrude NURBS, and you're also going to bring in a bool, which is right here, and you're also going to bring in a cube. So first things first, make sure that the cube covers half of your render, and it's definitely larger and longer than your render, so make sure it covers everything you want it to cover. So right now I want it to be covering exactly half my render, which is exactly what it's doing. And then you're going to put them into a bool, so you put the cube first and then the extrude right behind it, or no, on top. Alright, so that's the order right there. You're going to want to have the bool, which acts as a group. You're going to drag in the extrude NURBS, which has to be on top of the cube. And essentially what this does is the cube hides everything, wherever the cube is, it hides everything that's there. So that's half of my logo. So you're just going to select the bool, and then let's just rotate it up a bit like that. Actually, we can wait for that because it's going to be much easier to mess around with this now. So just duplicate your bool, and now the only difference is that you're going to move your cube to the other side so it covers the second half of your logo. And yeah, that should be good. Okay, so now we're just going to give it a bit of a dynamic rotation, because we obviously want this to look like it's being split in half and broken by these tentacles. So something, it doesn't have to be anything too fancy just for this tutorial, but alright, so that looks okay for now. And now I'm going to be teaching something that everybody has been requesting, which is how to do chains. So it's a very simple process. You get a rectangle right here, rectangle, and then you get a circle, and then you put them both into a sweep NURBS, which is right here. So I'm gonna redo that very quickly for you guys. So you go to the spline tab, you click and hold, go to rectangle, click and hold circle, and then you can just select them both, hold Alt, into a sweep NURBS. That did not work, it's fine, just drag and drop them. Make sure the circle is on top, and you're going to see something very weird. That's fine. You're just going to mess around with the width and height and the circle radius. So let's turn down the radius, and as you can see, the lower we turn down the circle radius, obviously it's going to make the radius right here much smaller. So if I turn that up, it's going to change that. So I'm going to give you guys the same exact settings that I had for my chains on the render, and here they are. So this is my chain. Let's make this bigger so everybody can see it. There we go. And you can, this is also based on personal preference, so it depends on how long and how wide you want your chains to look like, your chain length. But yeah, so this is the one, these are the settings I chose to keep. Make the radius 7.175 centimeters, or something approximate, something like that. And then the rectangle, make the width 120 centimeters, and the height 100 and let's say 72. And yeah, the radius once again is it's 12 centimeters here. Also make sure you select rounding, if not it's going to be a straight edge. And so yeah, that's your chain link right there. And now the boring part is just constantly repeating the process where you have to copy paste, rotate the chain link, and then move it into place. So that's the boring part, but essentially you're going to want the chains to be, I'll give you an example. Look at my renders. Let me see if I can find it. Ooh. it is, alright, whatever, I'm just sure the thrust one. You're going to want the chains to be connected from one side of the logo to the other, just like that. And then you're going to have the tentacles popping out from like from the back, as if it were breaking through the chains and stuff like that. So it's you get the idea. So we're not going to be actually placing the chains on right now because it's a tedious process and it takes a long time. But I would recommend positioning them like that in an arch from 2 or 3 points in your logo, and then having a couple that go off to make it look like it's holding on to place somewhere, like on your banner. So next up is using Kurulumun, and I've made a very brief tutorial on this. It's another plugin which allows you to make tentacles. So let's go ahead and show this, and there you go. So I'll link the tutorial because I don't feel like going through the process. It's in the description. Just go ahead and check it out. I've got a couple other cool text setups in that video for you guys to check out. But basically, this is where you start adding the tentacles. So you want to make sure that the root or the base of your tentacle, which would be this, is not visible. At least to where, see something like that, where it's hidden behind something, because you don't want to have an empty, like something like this, which is just too visible once it's rendered. So you're going to want to rotate them and make them look like it's pulling its way from the back to the front of the logo. And you're just going to copy paste, move them up a bit, and I like to make it quite dynamic, so having them come out through different holes in your logo. So if you have like tiny spots where you think you might be able to fit some of these tentacles, do so. It'll give it a much more natural look as opposed to adding a stock or something, which is what people usually confuse it for. So something like that. It's not very visible right now, so actually let me just put on a white material. There you go. So just have it coming out through these different spaces, and if you want to have different branches, you go to spline and then change the number of branches to 2 or 3. It depends. This is a bad seed, but you can always change this around. Let's see. And essentially, you just want to make it look like it's coming out from behind the logo and it's like breaking its way through. So the main idea is just getting the bool right and splitting it in half, making it look like it's being ripped apart. So the rotation is pretty key, and I would recommend for pretty much any render you make ever, try to never render it like that. So having it have your logo facing like down, like you're looking down on your logo. Try to look up because it's much easier to work with it in Photoshop. It's just a quick tip for people that are new to rendering logos and stuff like that. For our logo, let me just finish up here. You can just copy paste the 2 bools and then click on the extrude nerves on the duplicates. So click on the first one, hold Control, click on the second. Oops. Essentially what that does is it only selects the ones you click on. For example, if I were to hold Shift, it would select everything in between. So hold Control, select the 2 extrude nerves, then go to Caps, fill it, and turn down the radius once again to 1 centimeter on both, and then you can apply your rock texture to wherever you want, and yeah, accordingly. So hopefully this helped you guys out. This is it's a pretty neat render, and for people asking for the blood style, I am not going to release that because I worked so hard to get the texturing right and everything. I just don't feel like releasing it quite yet because I really want to master that, because I think it could be a really interesting style. So hopefully this helped you guys out. These are some pretty awesome renders in my opinion. So if you liked it, make sure to drop a like and comment letting me know what you want next, because I'm always open to suggestions for tutorials and stuff like that. Also, I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off just because I've been finding background design very, very boring and plain, and honestly I just hate the response of the community lately. So I'm just going to be taking a break, and a couple weeks off should be alright. And then other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. So 6 sexy people. Peace out.